All right, let's start off talking about weekend at Biden's. So the Biden family met at Camp David. It was Jill Biden, his wife, his son Hunter Biden, their grandchildren. They all convened at Camp David. It was a previously scheduled get together. So they were already planning on doing this. But they decided during this get together, they were going to discuss his future, as every Democrat seems to be calling for his ouster at this point, saying he's got to resign. He can't continue. We all have been hearing the stories. Well, apparently at Camp David, rather than say, you know what, honey, you're not doing so great. You're clearly on the decline. You're an older man. You should just relax and sip iced tea and pet your biting dogs and, and watch YouTube videos or whatever. They instead decided that Biden should continue going forward. So they're not going to actually put his health interests first, his mental interests first, or even the American people first. But they're instead saying, go ahead, you have our full support, our 100% backing, and they're encouraging him to continue staying in the race. Now, why would they do that? Couple of reasons in my speculation. One being, who wants to give up being president of the United States if you could potentially do it again for 4 more years? Jill Biden, his wife, is having a ball. I mean, she's riding on Air Force One. She's meeting dignitaries around the world and presidents around the world. She's going to fancy dinners. She's hosting parties and getting all the respect that comes along with being the wife of the president of the United States. So she's having a great time. Doesn't really want to give that up, I'm sure. Hunter Biden is a crook. He's there just needing dad to stay in the position for a variety of reasons. One, to potentially pardon him. Two, to continue making a lot of money off the family name. I mean, it's been very enriching for Biden to be in politics. It was extremely enriching for him to be the vice president. I only imagine that it's even better for him with him being president of the United States. So you've got two people who are really in his corner or in his ears, whispering or yelling, actually, probably, that he needs to stay in the race without any concern for his health and well-being. I mean, this is abusive. Quite frankly, this is just totally and completely abusive, what is happening to Joe Biden. Now, I don't like the guy. I think the guy should be ousted for a variety of things that have happened in his political record. There's a myriad of things that we could go after Joe Biden for. Old age and being on the brink of being senile and being feeble and, all the things that we've seen is not really it's really abusive, uncool. It's shameful that they're going after him for this reason when they've known all along. It's not like this is brand new news that Joe Biden is declining in his mental health. Everybody's known this. For 4 years, the media, the liberal media, has done everything they can to shield him. They've said things like, "Oh no, it's these are cheap fakes. He's just fine. He has a stutter." I mean, all the excuses that we've heard about Joe Biden's mental acuity, and now they're saying, oh, suddenly it's just hit us in the face. He's really bad off. No, Republicans and right-wing pundits have been saying this all along, and the left has been running cover for him. So clearly this is a coup, is my point on this. This is a staged, concerted coup. They suddenly decided they didn't want Joe Biden in office, and they're doing him dirty. And I mean, this is like a really dirty, shameful, humiliating way to take out the president of the United States. That's on your side of the aisle. It's one thing for the other side to do it. I mean, they've been doing it this whole time, but to do it to your own, this is really shameful. The other thing about Jill and Hunter, that being said, is they probably recognize that this is now a concerted coup. It's obvious. Everyone in the media is now talking about, like, all these Democrats on CNN and MSNBC. They're suddenly all talking, and you've got op-ed after op-ed being written about them in the New York Times, the Washington Post, Newsweek, all of these various different news organizations calling for him to step aside. It's a staged coup. Jill and Hunter are aware of that because it's obvious they've had his back this whole time with his mental, the way it's been. And now suddenly they've all changed their minds. And so they're running interference on that. I get it. And I think that's natural human instinct. It's natural human instinct. When you see a coup, you want to fight back on that coup. Totally. Even though in this particular instance, it is not in Joe Biden's best interest. It's not in the best interest of the country either. really, the Democrats shouldn't have been running interference for Joe Biden all of this time. That's where the real mistake was. And now they suddenly have decided to stage a coup. And the Bidens are trying to back their guy. They're trying to they're trying to save his reputation. But this is only going to lead somewhere really bad. Because if Jill and Hunter are going to insist that Joe Biden stay in the race, Democrats at this point, especially with all the rhetoric that they've been saying in concert together, saying the same things over and over, they're going to have to 25th Amendment the guy. There's not going to be a choice. In fact, many of us right now wonder if he even has the mental acuity to continue being president right now. If he doesn't have the mental faculties to be president, to run again and be elected again in November, then why is he president right now? Why is he the sole person in charge of the nukes right now? He shouldn't be in the office right now if it's that bad. And many of us think it is pretty darn bad. I don't know if it's quite to 25th Amendment right now, but I mean, we could debate that all night long. But he certainly cannot be running for president as we get to the fall. And Jill and Hunter are not doing him any favors if they have to 25th Amendment him, which is what they'll end up doing. They're not going to risk losing. They already know that Joe Biden is going to lose the race against Donald Trump. They already know that. Trump went into the debate already ahead. He went out even more ahead. Independents are not wanting to vote for somebody who they just view as senile. It's just anybody's better than a senile person. Any thinking, clear thinking person is better than a senile person as president of the United States. Why is that? Well, because you could hold the thinking person accountable, for one. Remember when the judge threw out any of the case against Joe Biden about the classified documents because he said he's just a feeble, confused old man? That's essentially why they threw out the case. I mean, anybody is better, anybody. And I mean that, which is really a terrible thing to say because there's a lot of really, really bad people in there. But anybody is better than a senile person in the role of president of the United States because we can at least know who's making the decisions. At this point, we don't know who's making the decisions. Is it Jill Biden who's in charge? Is it Obama, as people think, or Hillary Clinton who's in charge? Is it just his administration behind the scenes pulling the strings? Is it a freaking intern? We don't know who's actually running the country. We just know Joe Biden is probably not doing it 100% of the time. Is he doing it some of the time? Probably, but probably not 100% of the time. So any person is better than that, simply because that person would be held accountable to the American people. We'd at least know somewhat. I mean, there is, of course, the deep state that's making decisions, that coerces and pressures, and there's all of that for sure. But at least we would know pretty much who's running the country. So anybody would be better. So now we've seen some of some are trying to kind of run some interference, not just the Biden family, but you've got Obama coming out and saying, whatever, it's fine. You got some other Democrats also just saying, okay, we've all had some bad nights. It's no big deal. Tucker Carlson said from an unusually good source that Obama's tweet supporting Joe Biden was disingenuous. In private, Obama is telling people Biden can't win. So Obama is now backstabbing Biden in the back, saying publicly, everything's okay, don't you worry, and then behind his back, he's saying Biden can't win. But I don't know if is that really a bombshell? I mean, it's a bombshell if anybody thinks he can win at this point. So Obama's telling people Biden can't win. He's therefore in favor of an open convention. And Obama will not say whom he supports, nor as of yesterday afternoon had he met personally with Biden to deliver the message. So relations between Obama's and Biden's have never been warm. At times they've been hostile, but recently they've deteriorated further, mostly due to Jill Biden. In hours and days after the debate, she kept her husband cloistered away from anyone who might convince him to drop out. Jill Biden is the driving force behind her husband's re-election campaign, just as she was in 2020, when other members of the family, including Biden's sister Val, considered him too impaired to run. The next generation of political Democratic candidates understands all of this as an opportunity, and they're circling particularly Gretchen Whitmer, who's promoting herself aggressively. That was according to Tucker Carlson. Now, Gretchen Whitmer has come out saying, no, I'm not. She's been denouncing it, saying, I'm not trying to run aggressive. Don't even think about it. It's not me. Like, I'm not doing that. But here we've got insiders telling Tucker Carlson that Obama is not really supporting Joe Biden, that he is instead behind the scenes saying the guy can't win and we got to have an open convention. I don't know if we're going to end up with an open convention. It's at least better than nothing. It's better than no primary. They already took the primary away from Democratic voters. So if they take the convention away and make it a closed behind the scenes decision where they just kind of anoint the next person, that would be a disaster. It's already a disaster. I mean, look, the Democratic Party is not very democratic. So what do you expect from these people? Andrew Yang said, so I'm hearing there are Democratic aligned donors putting together a fund that would go to the Democratic nominee, but not if the candidate is Joe Biden, whom they regard as too likely to lose. It's designed to show support for moving on from Joe. So there's a total coup going on behind the scenes. Even the donors now are getting together and saying it can't be Joe, it's got to be somebody else. So who are they thinking it's going to be? There's a lineup of people. You've got Gretchen Whitmer here. You've got, of course, who are some of the people also that are like, okay, there's, of course, Kamala Harris. She's always a potential prospect. Kamala could end up being one. You also have Gavin Newsom. You have Michelle Obama. You have Barack Obama cannot be, but you have actually, so here's where it gets interesting. Barack Obama could be vice president of the United States again. So they could prop up Kamala. They could just say, all right, we're going to 25th Amendment Joe Biden. Kamala's going to be president. Who are we going to make vice president? They could actually put in Obama. They could actually do that. And then I think Obama actually could legally become president if they then removed Kamala Harris. So that's one way to a third term. So Hillary Clinton, I mean, there's always the possibility there. Anything's possible if they remove Joe Biden, which at this point I think they have to. I don't think they could get away with not. I think they have to figure out a way to remove him after there's been all of this chatter, the complete turn from the Democratic Party. So the question is, what are they going to do? Are they going to do a 25th Amendment on the guy? Probably if Jill Biden doesn't, I mean, maybe they'll pressure her. They'll put a lot of pressure on her. They'll say, look, we're going to 25th Amendment him. That would be a stain on his legacy. Do you really want that? And then maybe she'd finally say, all right, we give in. Joe Biden's going to step aside. Maybe she just wants to look like they're putting up a fight. Maybe that's what's going on right now. It's optics and optics only. And they already know Joe Biden's going to step aside. And this is all just making it sound like, well, there's some kind of there's some discussion. Now, when it comes to the convention, they have some options. They could definitely do an open convention, as Obama is apparently saying he's in favor of an open convention. That's where they would cart in front of the people 6 or 7 choices and the delegates would vote. It could be messy. There could be no clear winner. So there's some risks there. If you have an open convention, you might end up with, you're going to have some candidates coming forward saying, I'm running. I want to be potentially nominated. Maybe Robert F. Kennedy Jr., in fact. And you might end up with a candidate you don't want. The Democratic Party will do anything to avoid that. If they do a closed primary, it just solidifies what we already know, which is that the Democratic Party is anything other than democratic. Another thing I want to point out is that Donald Trump has come out on his Truth Social, and he's been saying things like, kind of brushing it aside, like everybody has bad nights. He's kind of downplaying it. And rather than saying, oh yeah, Joe's feeble-minded and he's not doing well and he's got to go, which is what you would think Trump would do. I think a lot of people would expect Trump to just really ride this one and say, oh yeah, Biden, get that guy out of here. But instead he's actually saying, he just choked on stage. That's all this was. So he's not talking about his mental acuity. Instead he's saying he just choked. Everybody chokes, I guess. But do we want a president who chokes? No, we don't want a president who chokes. Well, look, Donald Trump, it is not in Donald Trump's best interest for Joe Biden to step aside from the race. It is in Donald Trump's best interest for Joe to stay in. So you're probably going to see Donald Trump actually defending Joe Biden and actually saying, just not attacking his mental faculties. Because why would you run against the unknown? You don't know who they're going to throw into the race. It could be somebody it could be a shock to all of us. And then suddenly Trump is, potentially losing. Same with RFK Jr. You wouldn't want to find out. These guys don't even know who they're running against at this point. I mean, how do you run a campaign where you don't even know who you're running against? But of course, that's the strategy. Democrats are going to keep whoever it is. They're going to try to keep that under wraps for a while because it is better to not know who you're running against. You can't attack them if you don't know who they are. So I do think that they're going to, if Jill Biden doesn't get it together, they're going to 25th Amendment him. What's really interesting about this, though, is, this is just a showcasing of Democrats. The bigger picture on this isn't really about Joe Biden as much as it is about the fact that Democrats believe that no democracy is the way to save democracy. They just have total and complete disdain for the American people, for voters. They don't like their voters. They don't trust their voters. They've been rigging elections one way or the other. Whether you think it's a rig, like they actually going and meddling with the ballot boxes, or if you think they rig it in that they just put up their favorite candidate and they don't really let democracy in, and they claim to be preserving democracy, all about democracy. Either way, it's all bad. And there they are. They've known for a long time that Joe Biden wasn't in the right mental state. They've known this, and yet it didn't matter to them. They continued propping him up. They took all the choices away from the Democratic voter when it came to the 2020 election. They lied. They said Pete Buttigieg won the Iowa caucus when in fact Bernie Sanders did. They were just trying to undercut Bernie again. And they pretty much said, well, it's Joe. And then this election, they didn't allow, the right thing to have done, considering the way Joe Biden is they could have had a primary and let the voters actually decide, but they don't want to do that. These people have no interest whatsoever in democracy. And I'm hoping that the Democratic voters are waking up to that they're not getting a say in who could be the next president of the United States. And by the way, if they do nominate somebody, let's say they put Gavin Newsom in there or Michelle Obama, or, just pick your favorite Democrat, and they prop them in there, that person could be in for 8 years. So they would have gotten their 4 years with Joe Biden and potentially 8 years with the other Democrat, 8 years with somebody that the voters didn't really choose. Because do you think they're going to if that person wins and beats Donald Trump, do you think that the party, and that person ends up being the sitting president, do you think the party is going to do anything other than what they did this last time with the sitting president? They're not going to give the voters a choice. So now you're looking at a potential another 8 years without any democratic process within the Democratic Party. That's how much they hate the voters. They refuse to allow voters to vote. And now they're saying, well, we're going to let the elites decide. And this is the way they've plotted it and planned it. They pretended like everything was fine with Joe Biden's mental abilities. And then suddenly they act like, oh, we're just seeing this for the first time. No, you're not. You're just seeing it now, and you're making us believe you're just seeing it now so that it's too late for voters. Voters can't really vote now. The primaries are over. So, this is just them showcasing that they are totally and completely against democracy. And another thing I want to point out before we move on here, CNN held this debate, right? They said, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he completely challenged this, said, I'm the most qualified because you're saying that they're presumptive nominees. How presumptive is Biden now as the nominee for the Democratic Party, CNN? How dare they have a debate, a presidential debate saying, well, these are the presumptive nominees. So it's like counting your chickens before the eggs have hatched. That's exactly what they did. Or did they do it on purpose? Was this something that they were planning? They just they were part of the coup to oust Biden, to put in whoever it is that they've anointed, who we'll find out. Here we are as voters. We're just going to wait and find out who the Democratic Party have decided. There's no voting. If you're a Democratic voter, you're just going to have to wait and see what the elites tell you. And so CNN holds this debate saying there's a presumptive nominee. These are the presumptive nominees. And RFK Jr. didn't really qualify, even though he has his name on more ballots in the states than either Trump or Biden at this point, because neither of them are a guaranteed nominee. Anything could happen. We just saw what the Democratic Party did to Joe Biden. So they really screwed him over. They screwed over not just RFK Jr., but they screwed over voters. Could you imagine if RFK Jr. was allowed on that stage, and there he is, sharp as a tack, totally knows everything he's saying, him and Trump actually battling it out while Biden stands there bumbling around looking like a deer in headlights? That would have been an actual debate. There would have been some talk, points and counterpoints. There would have been something there for the American people to see. And that is exactly why they kept him off the stage, because they knew that because they were part of the staged coup here, they knew that they were going to showcase Biden bumbling around, not being able to run again. And they didn't want voters to say, well, there's this other guy who's a great option, and his name's Kennedy. We're pretty familiar with them. So why don't we look at this guy pretty seriously? So they completely rigged it and screwed him over. And not only did they screw him over, it's not about him, it's about us. It's about us, the voters. We didn't get any choices. We didn't get to see a legitimate debate between candidates. Why wasn't Jill Stein on the debate stage? Why wasn't Chase Oliver on the debate stage? Everybody knows the Green Party. Everybody knows the Libertarian Party, but they rigged it because those people are actually smart. They can actually argue. Jill Stein is extremely intelligent. So is Chase Oliver. All of them are sharp as tacks, could absolutely hold their own in a debate, whether you agree with their policies or not. They would have been able to do it. And these guys, CNN totally, completely rigs it in this obviously staged coup against Joe Biden so that they could put in their anointed elite, whoever it is that they've decided, who we will find out when we find out. All right, I got to play this clip for you. Nancy Pelosi. Now, everybody, and I mean everybody, is talking about Joe Biden clearly having, his mental, looks like he's got dementia. But no, what does Nancy Pelosi say? She says it's Trump who has dementia. Don't you know? Watch this.
Reason they don't. There are healthcare professionals who think that Trump has dementia, that his connection, his thoughts do not go together. Not only that he just lies, he doesn't even know the truth. So if we're just talking about mental acuity, let's be fair about it.
Yeah, let's be fair about it. She sounded like she has dementia. If she's sitting there thinking it was Trump, medical professionals think Trump has dementia, lady. I think you and Joe Biden, and it's interesting to see a lot of these people that are in their 80s now, and they're still running Congress, they're still in the government, and they are defending Joe Biden. It's like they've come out in droves, like the ultra geriatric group, and they're like, we got to defend him because we're next. I mean, what are they expecting to do with Joe Biden? Are they expecting to turn him into a Dianne Feinstein, where they're literally like wheeling him out, and then people are like Weekend at Bernie's? They're really doing that to him. I mean, it's just insane what they're thinking. But the biggest takeaway is that they just have showcased over and over and over again. The Democratic Party is showcased over and over and over again. I don't know how many more times we have to see it, of them having complete disdain for the voters, for them having no respect for voters, for them believing voters are stupid, voters can't decide, that they're the ones, the elites, who know better, and they're protecting democracy by ripping democracy away from the people. How many times do people need to say that to see that before they call for a complete collapse of the Democratic Party? That party has got to just go by the wayside, and a new party needs to rise up. Multiple parties need to rise up in its wake. But this party is so corrupt. It's so completely run by elites, and it's really saying something that they can't run on any policies. They don't have anything to actually run on except we just are going to defeat Donald Trump, and they've been riding that wave for so long, and that is how they justify ripping away our democracy. Whenever anybody tells you it's for your own good, this is for your safety, there's a threat, and then they want to, I mean, that's the first inkling that they're just going to have some authoritarian decision, and they're not going to let you decide because they know better than you. These other adults know better than you as an adult. It's ridiculous. Thank you so much for watching this clip from the full show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. Thank you guys so much for watching.